Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. This is the latest installment of EPM Live's webinar series. Today's topic is integrated portfolio management for IT using EPM Live's ITEngine application. My name is Jim Patterson, and I'll be your presenter today. For those of you that are not familiar with us, EPM Live is a global leader in PPM work management platforms that revolutionize the way organizations manage projects and work. We've been really in this domain expertise since 1999, project, portfolio, and just overall work management solutions. Using that experience, we have come up with a lot of full-function, pre-built solution applications that are ready to go so that people can manage projects and all their other types of work within their organization, including all work throughout IT. We do offer our solutions as either an online model in a SaaS or a hosted model, or as on-premise license solutions that you can install on your own servers. We've got a good reception from the marketplace. We have over 5,000 successful customers, and we're really a one-stop shop for all the software, online services, and any professional support or consulting services that you might require. We're also being received very well by the analyst community. The reviews that we're getting and the accolades that we're getting are mounting up over time. And it's good validation from the people that look at this stuff for a living that we're getting recognized for the quality, the content, and the capabilities of what we're providing. Another thing that we offer is really a scalable solution. We really have customers at every tier of the marketplace. So depending on where you're at today when you're out in the audience, from large enterprise customers through mid-market through small business, we have solutions, additions of the solution, or even ways to deploy it in a different heavy, mid, or lightweight fashion that would actually meet the needs of a variety of different tiers of the marketplace. All that flexibility really is part of partly attributes to the big customer base that we do have. And one thing we really stress is we want to make available to our customers the power to choose. We have all kinds of applications within the EPM Live suite. ITEngine is just one of them. But we can do all kinds of things within the application we're looking at today. Simple to-dos, traditional project portfolio management, service management, application management, new product development, asset management, some of the things we're going to show you today. All of these things these apps are available to you just for being an EPM Live customer. We don't charge you by the app. You can deploy the apps, as we'll show you later on, to meet the needs of your particular vertical industry or the type of work that you do. I mentioned from deploying it either online or on-premise, we have that. And then from a services perspective, we have really easy to use, easy to configure capabilities so that the customer can actually do it themselves, especially if they know SharePoint, us being a SharePoint-based application. We do offer quick start, build-to-order type of services that are very quick to get the customer up with some modifications or tailoring if they want us to support them on that. And we can really tailor this to whatever degree that you want through select or custom deployment services. So the idea here is out of the box, our SaaS people can get up and start managing projects and work day one. For folks that have more tailored needs, we can configure it to the most stringent of requirements. From a training perspective, we offer training to everybody. We have our EPM Live University where we have online training videos, instructor-led, either live or remote online classes, train-the-trainer programs, etc. And we have success packages for our customer that gives them all the help desk support and training that they can need within their organization for all the different roles that are going to participate in this solution. So let's talk about EPM Live and IT planning and control. The business needs today is that we more and more, as we have to make effective use of our dollars, really have to rationalize our investments, whether they be projects, whether they be applications, whether they be assets, or even where we're spending our time and our money and resources. And we want to make sure that we're aligning that work with strategic objectives, meaning we want to spend our resources and our money and our time on the things that are directly contributing to the higher overarching strategic objectives of the organization. We also want to make sure that we manage our work and resources effectively, meaning we want to remove inefficiencies. We want to be more responsive and more successful in meeting the needs of our internal or external customers. We also want to be able to provide visibility and control over all IT work, and sometimes that's difficult, as we will talk about a little bit more in this presentation. So IT in organizations is changing, more from a technology-oriented type of endeavor to more value-based and providing business value to the organization, being more focused on customer outcomes than on the underlying technology, being more demand-driven and more purposeful in what we work on rather than always being in firefighting mode, providing enterprise services and processes instead of having organizational stovepipes or silos that are barriers to success or getting things completed. Financial transparency on the costs of things is something that needs to be part of today's mix. And then instead of technical metrics in IT, more business value. What value are we providing to the organization? How are we helping the organization be more profitable and more effective? So the challenges that IT is facing, and these are just some of them, is that many of them have very distributed teams but very localized processes. So the coordination and integration of these can be very, very difficult across all the different types of work, both project-oriented and more operational-oriented type of work. Oftentimes there are disconnected and overly complex systems, meaning we have for different types of work separate and distinct different systems and processes, having different databases and different sources of information so that the automation of the process and tool utilization are inconsistent throughout IT. Also, service and application service metrics and service level agreements are ad hoc and uncoordinated, so maybe not properly communicated through the organization on how we will serve and respond to internal and external customers. So looking at this in a diagram, common thing today is people are doing service management in one application, project management in another, and application management and potentially their agile-related development work in another. So they're managed in separate systems that people have to go to. And if I'm in an IT role that I have to do all these different types of work, I have to monitor 3, 4, 5 different systems to actually see all the work that's been put on my plate and participate in all these things. Not very efficient or effective. And definitely not efficient or effective in providing the visibility that management needs. So our ITEngine, from an IT perspective, is really designed to help IT in their mission to becoming less of a cost center and more of a valued business partner through IT maturity. More from the reactive firefighting mode all the way through optimizing what we're doing, working on the right things, getting them done more effectively on a more cost-effective basis, and really driving value for the organization. So from a disconnected people and processes, to expand on this a little bit, there's all types of work that can be in an organization. If you have waterfall projects, there's more than just the line items in your schedule. There's to-dos and change requests and issues that may consume considerable bandwidth, deliverables that need to be created. And the idea is that all of this work can be handled with an EPM Live and put on people's plate for visibility and tracking. For folks that are doing more agile type of work, the ability to have agile planning tools and be able to manage backlogs and defects and user stories and other types of work in a more iterative basis and a more time-boxed iterative planning basis, we have the ability to do that. Also the more unplanned, unstructured, ad hoc type of work, the service requests, the to-dos that come up, those types of things all need to be managed to successful completion. So if you think about simple task management, traditional project portfolio management, IT service management, business process management, application lifecycle management, asset management, these are all things that contribute to this workload. And also, we have different resources, different management who have different roles in this process. So the idea is the user experience or the tools and capabilities that are provided or offered up from a solution should meet the unique needs of those particular roles so that they're focusing on the things that they need to be emphasizing. So EPM Live's work management platform really delivers on all these fronts and allows us to do this, as we'll talk about more in a little bit. The analyst group Forrester says that a comprehensive PPM tool investment is likely to provide an ROI of more than 250%. And that is not uncommon from an experience of our customer base out there. So if you take this another step further, I had mentioned all these different applications. Here's just 4 examples of applications that we might have within the EPM Live environment. There's some common threads, but the nature of the work that you're doing, depending on the type of work and the part of the organization or the vertical industry that you're in, could vary, and there'll be different variations or permutations of how you define and manage work in each of these areas. we can encompass templated and tailorable entities for all of these different work types within the organization. So you can take as broad or as narrow a definition of work in our solution as you would like. And though not required, if you have other solutions that are systems of record that are not going anywhere and they're actually generating workload, we have integrations that will allow you to take workload from those solutions, provide it to EPM Live so we can look at overall resource workload, capacity versus demand, and actually have resources status that work over in the EPM Live solution. The idea is the enterprise work capabilities then, even though we might have separate applications throughout the organization for different audiences, overall portfolio management, managing all of your portfolios, visibility into all of your schedules, all of your resources, all the financial aspects, time reporting capabilities, business intelligence and reporting and analytics are all part of what we provide at the enterprise level for management and for other interested parties. So the key here is, instead of those silos like we showed you in the earlier diagram, having a common funnel for a solution for all types of work. To be quite frank, when a request comes in, some folks don't know how it's categorized. And once it goes through some vetting, some triaging, some analysis, it may be determined the nature of what needs to be done as it's investigated further. When that work is selected, it can go into one system, but the path it would take through the process could be different depending on the nature and the type of work it is. So within the same solution, you can take different work streams and put it through their individual processes, and users can get all of their work through those different streams and participate on all those different levels, and the organization can get reporting across all of it through their life cycle. I mentioned earlier on that we are based in SharePoint. I think here's some advantages to that. One is EPM Live is providing a lot of capabilities in the areas of project portfolio and work management. But we're leveraging Microsoft SharePoint as a platform. And the reason that's important is it comes with a lot of rich collaborative capabilities, from content management to workflows to security and search and business connectivity and all the ways you can surface data. And we're leveraging that, yet we're focusing those capabilities in very specific ways. And even though it's Microsoft SharePoint, we support all four major browsers out there, Internet Explorer, Chrome, Firefox, and Safari. And mobility and looking at mobile devices is also part of the mix. So because it's built in SharePoint, why is that important? Well, one of the reasons is if you deploy us in-house, you can use what your team already knows. Well, actually, if you deploy us online, if they're familiar with SharePoint, the navigation principles, the usage of it is something that's familiar, and it will reduce adoption risk and reduce training requirements. You can also leverage existing IT resources who already have the skill sets to administer and maintain SharePoint and the underlying SQL Server database, for example. What that means is that users with this familiarity and with some level of knowledge of SharePoint will have much less dependency on the software vendor, being us, compared to more proprietary solutions and platforms where very many of them actually have to do the modifications and things for you, especially in the SaaS model. We can also leverage the more powerful capabilities of the powerful SharePoint platform, and we are an incremental add to what you already own. So if you already have SharePoint stood up and installed within your organization, you can leverage us as an incremental investment to get the value of the solution, but actually provide enhanced value to your existing investment in SharePoint. We also offer it in the cloud. So some folks, the cloud is making a big push these days, and we're seeing that happen in reality with the customers that are coming on board with us. But we still have a mix of the on-premise and the online cloud computing customers. So the nature here is, on-premise, you usually make a large capital expense and do all the services up front before you get online and actually start getting value. And then you upgrade or do further configuration, then you get more value. And the idea, it's a little bit more deferred. Where in the cloud computing, it gets up quicker, there's no upfront capital expense, and you start retrieving benefits on an increasing consistent basis much earlier in the process. Estimates by the Standish Group and third-party customer sat research basically says the average ROI of 51% within 12 months for cloud computing, and that 53% of software projects, which could be an implementation of an on-premise solution, go 189% of their original estimate. So there are some total cost of ownership things to consider. Also, on-premise hidden costs, things that you're looking at, the cost of hardware, consultants to do implementations, the infrastructure and the maintenance of that, dedicated staff for the hardware and the environment that you're in, and then you physically having to do the upgrades yourself and invest the time, resource, and money into that. With the cloud computing, there is no upfront license fee or hardware infrastructure for you to maintain. It's all done by the vendor, EPM Live. So just some thoughts to consider. But if we look at EPM Live's ITEngine capabilities and features now, we have key application management features that are already baked into our solution with our application management application. Key IT service management features. Traditional project portfolio management features. All these things that you would expect to find in these standalone applications are now in our bundled ITEngine solution. So I'm going to show you a lot of this in the demonstration, but just from a conceptual purpose, that idea of a common demand funnel and having different types where you can actually put in incidents, projects, applications, assets, whatever it might be, and basically provide visibility to that and have routing requests appropriately done through workflow process in the approval and execution of that work. Service management, maintain all service requests from a single location, meet unique needs based on the type of service request, and increase efficiency because this type of work is being managed centrally and in the context of all the other work that's going on within your organization. So common visibility. Also the ability to manage your service catalog and really have visibility into service level agreements and what the turnaround times are and how many active requests or overdue requests, for example, you may have in any one given category or contract or SLA. Application portfolio management, manage the entire portfolio of your application assets and maintain that inventory, and then roadmap your life cycle for maintenance and retirement of all of that, and achieve efficiencies and eliminate redundancies by having it part of the overall work mix, and even have associations with projects and other types of work to associate back to these applications so we know what we're investing and how much we're spending on each. Just traditional project portfolio management. We've done many webinars on this topic, and it's not my focus today, but folks doing traditional waterfall types of projects or mixing in agile type of projects or whatever methodology they want to use, having visibility into that and basically doing intelligent selection, picking the right things that strategically align with our organization, provide us the best returns, and working on the right things, the things that get us the most bang for the buck or value is what we want to do. And having the visibility and metrics and the views to do that, we can determine an optimal portfolio which comes in within our budget and within our business constraints. So as I mentioned, we have governance and workflow, so any number and variation of workflows to manage and to automate your business process are available to you. Essentially, the sky's the limit for what you want to do in managing this and having these things flow through the organization. Financial management, this is something that's often missed. It doesn't matter what items or entities you have in your solution, whether they're projects, whether they're applications, whether they're assets. We can actually do detailed line item budgets against those and track actuals against those. Maybe track benefits, both planned and realized, as we go on through and in a very definitive way manage the costs and the cost types around the project or work or application. Typically, we integrate this with other financial systems so the actuals are coming in from what's been actually spent, procured, and invoiced. From a resource management perspective, all these different types of work are being managed within EPM Live, and then we can actually roll up that information to say, what does this mean to my department or my people overall? What projects and work efforts and applications are we supporting? To what degree are we over or under allocated? And the idea to provide that, get the visibility both during and before we embark upon this work, gives us the ability to more effectively deploy resources and maintain workloads within our capacity to reasonably do the work. From a schedule management perspective, we can do simple to-do lists. We have an online waterfall scheduling tool and an agile planning tool. And we also have a bidirectional integration with Microsoft Project. So if you want to build plans in that, you can. But the idea is you can actually use all these different planning types within the same solution So depending on the nature of the type of work you have or the preferences of your users and your project managers, for example, you may choose a different planning tool, and it all works within our solution. The Agile Management Iterative Planning Tool really allows you to focus on the backlog for an application or a product, for example, and be able to define those, categorize them, size them from a points or an effort perspective, and then be able to slot them into iterations or sprints or however you term that, and basically manage this as time-boxed sprints or iterations, but have the assignments of that work really factor into the total workload of the resources who are being assigned. Typically, this type of work is being handled in a totally separate application, and the visibility of the impact of doing this agile work is something that's not factored into other resource management that's being done on other work and on other projects. So from a work management perspective, I think we tackled this already, but the idea is across the whole life cycle, as broad or as narrow a definition of work you can take. And the idea here is you will not have to go to separate systems in order to participate in all these different areas. So from an end user perspective, or the resource, probably 80% of the users in a system like this is really about what work assignments have been put on my plate. So if you look at that, I have one place to go called My Work, where depending on the work type, as you can see there's a variety of them in here, I can go to one place to see what's on my plate and status that information very readily without having to go to separate solutions or applications. We even make this My Work information available to you in Outlook. So as you're doing your day-to-day in Outlook with your email and your calendar and your tasks, these can actually be viewed and statused right from within there and have the same effect as if you'd done it right in our solution. We can take the information, the scheduling, the resource, the cost implications, the alignment information that we put against these active and proposed projects, and start doing what-if modeling. We can start doing trade-offs. What if we deselect lower priority projects? What if we slide out on in sequencing and time phase a project out 6 months? What would that do to keep us under budget and under our resource capacity and be able to save these scenarios? These are the types of things that we can do. And what's nice about this is it can involve all the work types within your organization: traditional projects, applications, agile projects, service request work, etc. So the idea of visibility and a total workload is something that's all available to us here. Time reporting, if you're interested in time reporting, we have a fully functional timesheet that lets you report time on any item within the system at any level of detail. And then we're leveraging more social collaboration tools and capabilities within our solution for the modern user. The idea here is things like discussion threads or comments that can be made, and people can collaborate on individual work items or projects right within the solution, getting notifications in a very social media / Facebook style fashion to see what's been put on my plate or what requires my attention and be able to take action on it right from the notification. Those can also be supplemented with email notification. And then the reporting. When we do all this type of work, we're really building a very rich repository of information on all types of work. So using our charting components, using our views, using our reports, reports or views that we haven't even considered. We provide a lot of them out of the box. You can configure the views and the metrics that make the most sense to you from a very comprehensive data set and surface that data in a variety of ways. So if we look at the total PPM work management stack, we have the core of our applications and our work entities. We have all different types of solution apps that are available to you and different features. And we have out-of-the-box integrations with the Microsoft Office products and also many financial systems as well as others. This application marketplace is something new for us. We launched this a few months ago. And it's really the concept of being able to modularly add features or bundled applications into your environment at essentially the push of a button, where we actually do prerequisite checks in your system and allow you to install these different apps for different audiences, or what we call communities. So the idea here is our customers have access to all of these things just for being an EPM Live customer. So with that, let's look at some live software. Okay, I'm in EPM Live. This fictional Steve Masters, who is a member of the Contoso IT department, and this is his homepage. So, for example, these are configurable, but out-of-box configuration would basically have his projects, for example, here. So we can see what work items he's either an owner or a member of. He has a component with a snapshot of his My Work, so you can see all the different work types in here: problems, service requests, applications, backlog items, tasks from project schedules, etc., all here. Also the social collaboration pieces, where we can actually click and see there's a comment on this particular work item, and he could be actually collaborating or giving messages to people on what the situation or status is on certain things. We also have a comment stream that basically allows him to collaborate with others in a singular fashion in one stream instead of having to go each individual tasks. And we had mentioned the notifications piece. That's very helpful to be able to go right to the item that needs to be statused or addressed right from the notifications window. So all things that make this a very collaborative solution. Now, we had mentioned the concept of applications. Well, we also have the concept of communities. So depending on the nature of your work, the department you're in, or the role that you're in, we can set up different communities. So here I'm actually in the projects community right now. But also notice I have community setups for applications, for IT assets, for service managements, and for IT executives. Let's start with the application management and go to that and see how that might be different from what we looked in a traditional project view. Notice outside of the traditional project management menus that we saw in the last community, notice that the main menus now are dealing with applications, projects, backlogs, and changes, and other things like that. And notice that the focus here is not on projects, but on the applications that he is responsible for. So the idea is visibility is the same, but the metrics or the way you look at these things may be different. So for example here, application prioritization, a nice bubble chart that shows risk score versus planned benefits, something with low risk and high benefit. Here looks like we have some ledger tracking system is going to be a big success for this particular organization should we do it successfully. We can have any number of views. So if I go into the applications and go into the full application portfolio, you can have all different kinds of view of the portfolio. Here it's still showing me my applications, but I could have all different views of this application inventory. So let's say, for example, I wanted to look at active application health. Different metrics come up. So here I'm looking at different applications. I can see how many projects are associated with each of these, how many active tasks are associated, number of overdue tasks, active issues, number of active backlog items. So I can look at this and see everything that's associated within each of these things. I wanted to look at application analysis, a different perspective. Now I can start looking at KPIs and scoring for each of these applications to see the relative importance has been gauged by our organization and how they're actually performing. All of these types of indicators are out of the box for us, but you can add your own and actually change your thresholds and the formulas to which calculate these things to meet the needs of your organization. We can even look at this type of thing from a more dashboard perspective. So now, using our charts, we can start looking at metrics and things like, how many applications are we managing, in this case by department, or applications by architecture alignment, or application analysis by the piece that we showed you just prior. It's the idea from a dashboard perspective, something that is the head of application management or development might be interested in a more, let's just say, comprehensive view here. And then we showed you the bubble charts earlier on. The idea is to be able to have a configurable view of this stuff and looking at things by total score and planned benefit, which is a different perspective now than we had on the other one. So the planned benefit is here, and then if the total score is high, that upper right is a sweet spot. And once again, that ledger tracking system is scoring high on this front as well. So if I go back to the application portfolio view, the more of a listing view, we can do all kinds of things around these. So for example, let's just say I have a planned application that's coming in and I want to start building some costs around that. I can actually build budgets and a cost plan around that. So here, and these are configurable, I can start building a very detailed line item budget on a time phase basis that will ultimately add up to a total cost of the project. And what's nice about this, we have the facilities now to track actual costs against those and actually then plan those in a way that can actually give us metrics on how we're doing against our budget. Same thing can be done with planned benefits. Are we having cost savings? Are we having revenue growth as a result of this project? Those are things that we can all capture from a cost perspective in a very flexible cost planning capability, which is an important part of making application-based decisions. The same thing with allocating resources to this. If you're looking at allocating from a capacity planning perspective, you can actually build resource plans for these. So for example, I can say on a finance tracking system, I can pick different resources and I can search for them by different criteria. But let's just say from an application management perspective, I'm actually going to have Adam be the resource who's going to be responsible for doing this. And I can plan their hours or their FTEs that they want against that and how much per month they're going to apply against this particular application so we can start forecasting effort of what it's going to take from a people perspective. So in these applications, you're going to look at other things. So for example, if I go look at this CRM project, these applications can be associated with a variety of other entities. Notice up in the ribbon here, we have an area called associated items. And here, the CRM project, I could go look and say, show me the associated application backlog for that CRM. And it will bring up for me things that are currently in work and planned in certain iterations, as well as things that are unallocated. So I have backlog items here that have not been assigned to any particular sprint, scrum, or iteration. So the idea here is I can manage an ever-growing backlog, do some prioritization, do some sizing, and then make decisions when I actually get into my Agile Planner about which ones I'm going to incorporate and which ones that we can actually do successfully. From an association perspective, I can also say what kind of changes are associated with this CRM. So when that comes up, it's going to bring up for me changes that have been either suggested or in progress or not started yet that is actually could be in different levels of approval. And the idea is we can track those. What about risks or problems? So if we have problems associated with this particular application. Service requests that are associated. So the idea is when you configure this, things that you're doing as far as work can be attributed and associated and rolled up to looking at what it's costing us to maintain this application. So the idea here is that any of the work you're doing can be affiliated or associated with an application that you're managing from your application portfolio because we're all in one common system. The same thing with service requests. From a service management perspective, if you have ongoing service requests or tickets coming in against applications, it'd be nice to be knowing what application, what platforms, et cetera, we're having these come in on. So the idea is we'll show you a little bit next on service management, but the idea now I can very much focus on what are we doing to maintain and respond to needs and issues that we're having regarding specific applications. So with that, let's go to the applications. Let's go to the communities again. And this time, let's go into service management. Here, once again, Steve comes in and he can focus on the service items that are just appropriate to him, or he can go to a full service request area to get visibility into the service requests that he has permissions to see. So here are his specific ones, okay? But notice that these service requests are listed. They can be entered. If I open one up, you go into an edit mode. Notice that all the characteristics that you might want to capture regarding this. this service request is associated with an application. It might be associated with an asset, hardware or otherwise. It might be part of a certain service catalog. Request orders, departments, type of work, prioritization types of information. And these are things that we're providing out of the box for you, but that doesn't mean any categories, metadata, or other things around these items are not are very configurable to meet the needs of the way you're doing business today. Also, these work items have a number of different workflows associated with them, but one of the things, if this service request comes in more of an ITIL fashion, we can convert or escalate this to a problem from a simple service request and make it part of a problem portfolio or a problem list, so it can get escalated up to a different type of item that we need to track. If we go to the problems next, we can see a number of things that have been either created or escalated as problems. Now, if I go in here and through further investigation, this needs to escalate or go up through the process in a more ITIL fashion, notice that this item can be converted to an IT change, meaning it can be moved forward through the process, and simple service requests can be escalated to problems, which in turn can be escalated to changes. And then obviously the same thing can be done with changes, but here, for example, in this example, and this could vary depending on your process, but the idea is that any one of these changes in IT could be converted or escalated to a full-blown project should the scope and the impetus and the size of it warrant it. So the idea is all these different work types, they can go through the process, and as you evaluate and assess, you can determine how to do it and put it through different flows depending on the nature of the work or the size of the work or the severity of the work. The service catalog is really giving us SLA type visibility. We can have SLA documents associated with this, but here this view in particular is giving me an idea of against each of these service catalog items, how many active requests, overdue requests, and the average days assigned from an overdue perspective, if that's applicable. So the idea is we can manage these from a central place. And then our knowledge base is really a way to really share information with your user base out there and things where they can be a little more self-serve. So on the how-to area, we just have some limited examples here. If a customer needs to be, or internal, external customer needs to be reminded on how to reset their password, all part of the knowledge base. And with the SharePoint basis here, as this knowledge base gets large, it can be readily searched by keywords or by content. And obviously, from a reporting perspective, we have all kinds of ways to look at these types of things. We have some examples that are pre-built in here, but things like open service requests by days overdue. Obviously, this is demo data. One of these things, a couple of these things are getting fairly stale. Open service requests by their status. Active problems by when they're due. Active IT changes by when they're due. What's nice about this, our charting components can actually be configured. You could actually put as many of these on a dashboard page as you like and actually configure them much like you would an Excel chart. So we're actually using the same charting component 4 times here and just configuring it from a very, even a business user really can configure those things. No coding is required. As well as reporting. So you can actually go in and see that there's listing reports on things like changes. We have some SQL reports on all these different areas and a lot of pre-built ones. But what's nice about this is these libraries of reports can be added to or modified by the customer, meaning that they can tailor the reporting to their specific needs. Let's next go to the community for IT assets, for asset management. Once again, since I'm still logged in as Steve Masters, he's got a lot of broad responsibilities in here, and some of your users wouldn't have access to all these things necessarily based on permissions. But notice that there's an asset list here, and he has his assets and things that he's working on or things that he's been assigned to or responsible for. In the broader asset list, which could be a broader list of assets that he has access to, he might be able to look at some of these things and look at different views, just like we did in any other portfolio. We could just focus on hardware assets or software assets or any other classification that you want to make available to you through data or metadata. So if I go in and look at the details of this server 11102 asset, and I come in and say, let's edit the item. Notice all the details we're keeping, things like serial numbers, location, warranty information, manufacturer, and anything you want to keep in here is configurable. Also notice, just like the other portfolios that we talked about, if I want to click on this server, notice I've got associated items. So I can see for this particular asset what asset documents might be associated with it, particular to that asset. What changes may have come in through that asset. What problems may exist, what service requests. So if I look at the service request that might be associated with this particular server, I can then very quickly go in here as responsible to see that there is a server down request that is actually in progress. So the idea is the associations and the cross-pollination of this information through the application is very powerful. From an executive perspective, we can set up communities or views that are particular to the executive themselves. Through a combination of setting up these communities, through permissions and security as to which applications and items, for example, or projects that an executive has access to see, these charts could render themselves differently for each different executive based upon their area of responsibility. So we saw the dashboard related things, and here's just some more examples of using that charting component that we provide with the solution. But permissions and views parameters govern what each exec might see. We talked about reports, and it's nice to have views and listing views like I've shown up till now, but what about if you'd like a true report generation, either to view or to save as a file or forward to someone else? The SQL Server Reporting Services reports, we provide a rich set outside of, within the application, but you can actually add to this library all you want. So as an example, if I was going to look at application changes, maybe I want to look at them by their priorities. And as they come up, they can be parameter driven. I might say, show me all the applications I have access to, and show me all statuses. And then when I apply that, I can see for me, I really just have one with things going on right now, which is really for the CRM application as we go on through. What's nice about these is these types of reports can not only be viewed, but they can actually be exported to other formats and sent out in things like PDFs, etc. I guess the other piece is the concept of analysis. You know, we're planning all this work. We've got projects. We've got service requests. We've got applications, and we've got assets, and we've got work revolving around all these different entities. Okay? So let's say I go back into the applications realm here, into this community. And let me go into the applications portfolio. And let's say I just select all the projects that I have access to in the portfolio, and I want to go look at the costs associated with those. What's nice about that, I showed you how we could do cost planning and resource planning for each individual project or application or other entities. But if I want to look at the totality of what all that means and what I've done, I can go into the cost analyzer. That cost analyzer will then tell me which applications actually have will tell me which applications actually have cost plans, and then show me the totals of those on a time phase basis. So it looks like there's 3 projects that we have actual cost plans that are built on a monthly basis on through. And through the different categories down below, we can see we're below or under our budgets through more of a heat map type of view. We can actually configure the way it totals down below and be able to compare totals in different cost types and things like that. But the idea, it's a very easy way to get an aggregate view of all costs. Same thing if we were going to do it from a resource perspective. I don't know how many resource plans have been built around these applications, but if I look at this,
and only one has a resource plan, but I can see from within that resource plan, here's the resources that are involved, and here is their over or under allocation, or they're within their capacity or over their capacity for each of these individual months. The other key thing that's really strong is what-if capabilities. So if I select all the applications and I go into a modeler, to be able to use a snapshot that's not live data and be able to actually look at cost or resource information and start making prioritization or selection decisions, and this bottom could be a heat map as well. But the idea is I have a list of projects. They may be prioritized and scored like we talked about earlier on. And let's just say I wanted to not do the CRM project. What would that do? And I can see the rendered or the difference in the cost and the front loading of that. Or I might say, you know, we need to do it. We've got the costs here in this front price, but what we might have to do is we might have to defer it out to a later point in time. And the idea is the cost about that and the heat map that would show us where we were over under our budgets in this area or over and under resource would be something that we can do, and then we could save versions of these scenarios and evaluate different selection mixes as we go on through. And this is true for all the work, whether it be our projects, our applications, our assets, et cetera, et cetera. The key here is that you can define as many different work types and user experiences and communities as you need to define your organization. Yet at the highest level, that information is all going to come together for roll-up reporting, visibility, and execution. So this concept of communities really allows us to have a diversity of work types within a common solution and address the needs of a variety of different audiences. Obviously, we're focused on IT work today, but obviously if your organization does other types of work depending on the nature of your vertical industry, those too can be accommodated along with all the IT and planning and control type of functionality that's in here. The business value proposition is there's really no need for separate, numerous, expensive applications to manage the different work types any longer. We can generate increased value from the existing investment you have in SharePoint like we discussed before. We can get increased efficiency from our workers by getting all work in a single solution and not having them hopping around to different applications to do different types of things. And potentially, if we get it all in here, if you have other applications, the opportunity to retire multiple solutions that can all be handled in one will present itself potentially. And that way, expensive maintenance contracts or maintenance agreements and things like that with annual renewals can all be retired and really help justify bringing this all together in a singular system. So why EPM Live? All work, one platform. Pre-built apps and templates. Support offerings. We have very robust premier support packages that really help to encourage and promote and ensure our customer success. We accommodate all users and all maturities. So with this concept of communities, et cetera, we don't have to apply the same level of rigor or process to every audience or community within the solution. And you have the power to choose what scheduling tools to use, which applications to use, whether you go online, hosted, or SaaS, or on-premise with the solution. The idea is there's choices that you have. So if what you saw today piqued your interest, you can visit epmlive.com. At the upper right of our homepage at our website, there's a button for requesting a free trial. Fill in the information, and you'll get access to a demo environment that you can actually start getting hands-on with the solution. Or you can contact us at info@epmlive.com or toll-free at 855-EPM-LIVE. So with that, I just want to say thank you for your time today out of your busy schedules. Feel free to contact us if you would like a more deep dive into any one of these areas. We went through a very high-level overview in a fairly short period of time, but if this interests you, we'd be happy to schedule something for you individually. So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you at the next webinar.